You're watching a generation that did everything right and still got left behind. They went to college. They got the job. They saved their money. They played by the rules. But something changed. Quietly, slowly, and by the time anyone noticed, the game had already been rigged. Today, we're going back to 1980, and we're going to compare it, dollar for dollar, decision for decision, to 2026, and I promise you, what you're about to see is going to make you question everything you've been told about money, success, and the American dream. Stay with me, because the most important number comes at the very end, and it will change how you think about your financial future forever. Let's start with the most basic building block of wealth, income. In 1980, the median household income in the United States was around $21,000 a year. Sounds small, right? But here's what nobody tells you. Adjusted for inflation, that's roughly $78,000 in today's money. Now guess what the median household income is in 2026? Around $80,000. That's it. After 46 years of technological advancement, productivity booms, and economic growth, the average American family has barely moved. You work just as hard. You produce more, and you take home almost the same. But income is only half the story. The other half is what that income actually buys you. Let's talk about housing, because this is where things start getting dark. In 1980, the median home price in America was $64,000. With a typical 20% down payment, you needed $12,800 to get into a home. A person earning the median income back then would need to save for roughly 2 years to afford that down payment. 2 years. In 2026, the median home price has crossed $420,000. That 20% down payment, you're looking at $84,000, and with the median income at $80,000, you'd need to save every single dollar you earn for over a year just to get to the front door. But it gets worse. In 1980, the average 30-year mortgage rate was around 13%. Yes, 13%. People will throw that number at you as proof that today is better. But here's the math they conveniently skip. At 13% on a $64,000 home, your monthly payment was about $708. Oh, that was roughly 40% of the median monthly income. In 2026, at a 7% mortgage rate on a $420,000 home, your monthly payment is around $2,696. That's over 42% of median monthly income. The payment ratio is almost identical, except in 1980, the home was worth $64,000. In 2026, you're carrying a $420,000 debt. The risk is not the same. The pressure is not the same. And the path to ownership has never been steeper. Now let's talk about education. The golden ticket that every parent in the 1980s handed their kids with absolute confidence. In 1980, the average annual tuition at a 4-year public university was about $800 a year. Adjusted for inflation, that's around $3,000 today. In 2026, the average annual tuition at a public university is over $11,000. Private schools? Try $40,000 to $60,000 a year. A student in 1980 could work a part-time minimum wage job over summer and cover most of their tuition. Today, that same summer job might cover 1 month's tuition, if they're lucky. The result? Americans now hold over $1.7 trillion in student loan debt. That's trillion, with a T. And here's the cruel irony. The very degree that was supposed to launch people into the middle class is now the anchor dragging them down before they even begin. A 25-year-old in 1980 could graduate, get a job, and start building equity in a home within a few years. A 25-year-old in 2026 graduates with $37,000 in debt on average and spends the first decade of their career just trying to get back to zero. Let's talk about the stock market, because this is where the story takes an unexpected twist. On the surface, 2026 looks like a golden age for investing. You can open a brokerage account in 5 minutes. There are no trading commissions. You can buy fractional shares of Amazon or Tesla with $5. In 1980, investing in the stock market was largely for the wealthy. Commissions were steep. Access was limited. Most middle-class families didn't participate. So score 1 for 2026, right? Not so fast. Here's what changed. In the 1980s, 83% of American workers had access to a pension, a defined benefit plan where their employer guaranteed them a monthly income for life and retirement. By 2026, less than 15% of private sector workers have a pension. The responsibility of retirement has been completely shifted from corporations onto individuals. You are now your own pension fund manager. You carry the market risk. You make the decisions. And if you get it wrong, there is no safety net. The 401k was introduced in 1980 as a supplement to pensions, not a replacement. But somewhere along the way, corporations realized they could eliminate pensions entirely and hand employees a self-directed account instead. They saved billions. You got the risk. Now here's the part of this conversation that nobody wants to have, but everybody needs to hear. Wages, housing, education, retirement, each one on its own is a challenge. But together, they create a compounding trap that previous generations simply did not face. In 1980, a single-income household could comfortably support a family of 4. Buy a home, take vacations, retire with dignity. In 2026, dual-income households are often the bare minimum just to survive. And yet, people are still being told that if they just skip the avocado toast and make their coffee at home, they'll be able to afford a house. That advice isn't just wrong, it's insulting. If you saved 5 a day by skipping coffee every single day and for 10 years, you'd have 18,250. That doesn't even cover the closing costs on a median-priced home in 2026. The math doesn't lie. The narrative does. But here's where I want to give you something the doom and gloom crowd won't. Because this isn't the end of the story. Yes, the game has changed. Yes, the old playbook doesn't work the same way. But the people who understand the new rules, the ones who adapt instead of complain, they are building extraordinary wealth right now. Here's what's different in 2026 that didn't exist in 1980. The internet has democratized income in ways that are genuinely revolutionary. In 1980, your earning potential was almost entirely capped by your employer. Today, a person with a skill and an internet connection can reach millions of customers worldwide. Freelancers, creators, consultants, and entrepreneurs are building multiple income streams that would have been impossible 40 years ago. Geographic arbitrage is real. Remote work means you can earn a Silicon Valley salary while living in a city where your dollar stretches 3 times further. People are moving to lower cost of living areas, or even internationally, and dramatically accelerating their wealth-building timelines. Index fund investing, available to everyone with no minimums and no commissions, has made it possible for ordinary people to capture market returns that previously only benefited the wealthy. And real estate, yes, it's expensive, but tools like house hacking, short-term rentals, and real estate investment platforms have opened doors that didn't exist for the 1980s. Middle class. The path isn't easier, let's be honest about that, but the ceiling is higher than it has ever been in human history, for those willing to play a different game. So, was it easier to build wealth in 1980? For the average person following the traditional path? Absolutely yes. The math is undeniable. Lower relative home prices, accessible education, employer-funded pensions, a stable middle class that rewarded loyalty and hard work with genuine security. But here's the number I promised you at the beginning, the one that puts everything in perspective. In 1980, the top 1% of Americans held about 22% of the nation's wealth. In 2026, that number is approaching 38%. The middle class didn't just stagnate. Wealth was redistributed upward, systematically, over decades through policy changes, corporate restructuring, and an economic system increasingly designed to benefit those who already have capital over those who are trying to build it. Understanding that isn't about being angry, it's about being awake. Because the people who see the system clearly, who understand exactly what they're up against, are the people who find the gaps, build the strategies, and quietly win anyway. The game changed. Now you know the rules. The only question left is, what are you going to do about it? If this video opened your eyes, share it with someone who needs to see it. And if you want to learn the exact strategies that are actually working in 2020, subscribe, because we're just getting started.